Thank you for being with us tonight. Top mom brought in full ankle shackle from the jailhouse to the courthouse to answer questions from your audience.
Tell me your name, please. The murder defendant accused of killing her daughter, Kaylee Marie Anthony, was back in court because prosecutors wanted to know how she's paying for her so-called dream team.
You say there are no other agreements selling my story, and that's true?
Yes.
Does any literary rights fee agreement exist between you and Mr. Baez?
No.
I'm convinced that no conflict exists. I'm trying to defend this case. I'm worried about this case. They need to be worried about their conviction more so than their post-conviction. I see every day evidence that points to my client's innocence. Now, Judge, briefly, and frankly, I don't see the need.
Straight out to Kathy Bellick for WFTV in court today. Kathy, what happened?
Well, there were a couple of different incidents between the defense and the prosecution. It usually was sparked by a comment that Jose Baez would make in court about the case that the prosecutor didn't think was appropriate. At one point, he even accused prosecutors indirectly of leaking things to the media, so he asked the judge to tell prosecutors to keep what they've discussed behind closed doors private. That angered the prosecutor because that's a no-brainer, I guess, in his mind, and felt that they were questioning the prosecutor's ethics. The judge got fed up in the end. There was a little bit of taunting going on even between Baez eventually smirking at the prosecutor after realizing he got upset over
You know what? Baez better stop the smirking. Let's unleash the lawyers. We're taking your calls live. Top mom brought from the jailhouse to the courthouse today. Full ankle shackles. She had an extreme makeover, looking like a soccer mom in court today. Kirby Clements, defense attorney out of Atlanta, former prosecutor Alex Sanchez, veteran trial lawyer out of New York. You know, Kirby, the smirking that the defense is doing aimed at the state, you know what? He's got a tiger by the tail. He can't hold on, and he can't let go. He may smirk all he wants to in front of the judge, but that doesn't go over well in front of a jury. Not at all.
Well, that may be true, but, you know, this is also a mind game. He's got to get in the prosecutor's head, and he's doing a pretty good job of it right now.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm very serious.
Instant playback. Baez is not in anybody's head. All right?
The prosecutor's like a
making
man hand today.
Left and right. Baez is not in anybody's head. Kirby Clements, Alex Sanchez, weigh in.
Well, you know, you're saying that it doesn't look good for the jury, but as far as I know, there is no jury at the present time.
That's what I just said, Sanchez. I said it in front of a judge today, but it won't work in front of a jury.
Right, but when the time comes, I'm sure Mr. Baez will be very well aware of his demeanor in the courtroom.
Well, if he's listening tonight, he will be. We're taking your calls live out to Steve Helling, writer with People magazine, on the story from the very beginning. Steve Helling, you were in court today. What did you observe?
Well, what I saw was George and Cindy Anthony arrived at court. They smiled at Casey. Casey smiled back. And then, you know, there were some fireworks going on. Prosecution, defense, kind of going at each other. And finally, the judge just said, you know what, I'm tired of this. This isn't going to happen. And it's not going to happen in his courtroom. He's not going to let it happen.
To Drew Petrimo, well, you know what? It had already happened. That's a day late, $1 short. Drew Petrimo, WDBO. Drew, this is what I don't understand. It seems to me everybody is like an ostrich. They've got their head in the sand and their butt in the air. We already have been told that over $250,000 have been made off Kelly's murder. Now, that money had to go somewhere, all right? So if it didn't go to Top Mom, where did it go, and is it being funneled to the defense? Did anybody think, ding, ding, to ask that in court today?
Well, the prosecution wanted them to define what story means. While they said that she might not be selling her future story, do pictures and licensing count? That answer wasn't that question wasn't answered in court, they did
I'm
go
sorry, I couldn't
behind
hear
closed
you,
doors.
Drew. I couldn't hear you. That question, what?
What I was going to say is they went behind closed doors. They talked for about 7 minutes. The judge came out and he said that he was satisfied that there was no conflict of interest. And whether that question was answered behind closed doors, we won't know. And it seems like we're not going to find out what they talked about behind that closed door.
Out to Andy Kahn, director of the Crime Victims Assistance Division there in Houston, Texas, a champion for victims' rights. Liz, let's see how much money on that full screen we believe they've made so far. Andy, we already know over $250,000 paid allegedly by networks for interviews about this story.
Yeah, Nancy, I mean, she's a ready-made stimulus package for Baez and the other miscreants that are looking at her like a big cash cow. And I think you're delusional to think what might not be sold as a story today doesn't preclude it from happening in the future. There's going to be some big money deals coming out of this.
We are taking your calls live, everyone. Top Mom in court today. There you see her dressed in demure lavender top, gray slacks, a far cry from photos that emerged just hours before she was to appear in court partying in lingerie.